Yeah, see, there we go. Yeah. Oh, we're perfect now. Good evening.
Good evening. You are live here courtside with Lawman,
And Carmen B.
and we are here to talk about issues that affect the public related to the justice system.
Criminal law, and all kinds of social aspects too.
Yes.
So, give them the proviso, Carm.
Yes. If you call in, if you comment in the chat, if we answer a question for you that does not create an attorney client relationship between yourself and Lawman or yourself and Carmen B, we are an informative and an educational program. We want you to be informed.
And we like to talk about social issues that affect our communities and our society. So, tonight seems to be a lot of news this week, Carm.
There is.
First of all, I'll start with something we actually probably missed talking about, and that's the sentencing of the cop that shot the young man in Minnesota.
Dante Wright.
Right, and her sentence, and the judge crying at the sentencing, and then finding ways of leniency, which we can talk about that how that works.
So we have a human life that was taken. Dante Wright will never be able to come home and hug his mother, hug his family ever again. And this is the officer with the situation where she said it was a traffic stop. So there was no allegation that he was about to harm anyone. This was merely a traffic stop
And he was going to drive away.
for minor traffic violations, and he got back in the car and attempted to drive away. This is where the officer said that she intended to pull her taser, but instead she pulled her gun and she fired. I believe striking him in the chest
Yes,
and killing
killing
him.
him.
Um,
So they did charge, and a jury found her guilty of first and second degree manslaughter.
yes. And her sentence, or the sentence that the judge imposed, despite the fact that the prosecutors, I believe, were asking for 7 years, which still seems pretty light
Right.
when I have clients that get 7 years for incidents where no one is killed.
Right.
But the judge sentenced her to 2 years. So, what is that saying? Is that saying that that is all that an African American young man's life is worth?
Well, let's see. The judge did say that this was a mistake, it was an accident, and she didn't mean to take anyone's life, and that she feels so bad about doing that. Now, is it a mistake and an accident? Well, maybe so, but it is a manslaughter conviction.
That is what the
So,
jury determined. The
if it was
jury,
a mistake or an accident, then that might have been her defense and she wouldn't have been convicted.
but
So,
she was convicted.
right. And I understand that the judge also was expressing some probably unnecessary emotion
Well,
during the sentencing.
my understanding is that the judge actually was moved to tears and crying during this sentencing, which I find a little odd.
Right. I
It
was,
is extremely rare. And my question would be, has that judge ever cried when sentencing a minority in her court for
well, what
something where their defense was this was an accident,
accident?
despite the fact that the jury has found there to have been factually a crime committed?
And there is precedent. You remember the young man who was shot in his own home by a cop who goes into his home claiming, oops, I'm in the wrong place. And once shot and killed. And this judge gives out the Bible, comes down, hugs her. They have a love fest and things like this.
Her sentence was, though, harsher than the sentence that we saw in
A
this
little
particular
bit
case
more. Yes, it was. However, the emotion shown from
by
a
the judge
judge is what I'm talking
towards
about.
towards the defendant.
Right.
That is
We
something
we do not see
extremely
that.
rare. I can't say that I've ever seen that kind of emotion.
I mean, there's two kinds of emotion. There's a judge who will sentence and they will just do what the law dictates. Usually, most of the time, they will show deference to the victim's family and to the victim, even if it was an accident, or boys will be boys, or just you're playing around and you cause a death, or you cause harm or you're using guns, the judge may be sympathetic with that, but they will enforce the sentencing rules. Now, what I find different is the emotion expressed by the judge on the bench.
That it's actually bothering them to hand down this sentence.
Right. Which would be a righteous sentence simply because the crime was committed. So it's just funny and ironic that the two times that we see that it happens to be cops, white women, who shoot a black guy and claim it was an accident. When truthfully, who walks into somebody else's house with a gun drawn and says, oops, it's an accident? And who pulls out their gun when they thought it was a taser, held it, and didn't realize it was a taser? Now, Oscar Grant, very similar precedent there, I guess, right? And there, Oscar Grant was tied up in the ground. And the officer goes for his taser for some reason because he couldn't run away. Let's see, he couldn't hit anybody. He could, I think he was pretty much defenseless at the time, but going for a taser and grabs the gun and shoots him and kills him. Even he had involuntary manslaughter and it got 4 years. And you know, you do have time on that. So there are at least 3 instances here, but the judge wasn't crying there, I don't think. At least I don't think so. So we have 2 female judges, Asian and black, who expressed such emotion at this time of sentencing. So
There's a question from Mark Vaughn indicating, can you get a judge removed from a case?
the best time to do that is when a judge is assigned the case at the very beginning. You can what we call paper, we can disqualify a judge for no reason at the very moment that they're assigned to the case. If you have a judge that you feel is prejudiced in your action or against you or the defendant, then there is another code section that you can use and you file an affidavit and there's somewhat of a hearing, but you can also disqualify a judge. Now, here, this judge had already sat through trial, already sat through the verdict and going through sentencing. And at that particular point, you're not going to be able to exercise any challenge to the judge. It kind of looks bad to the prosecution also, who who I believe feverishly explained to the judge the victims were suffering here and that there is a victim to this crime, because the judge seemed to feel and say that there is no victim here, that this is just an accident, just, and she feels so bad. So you can get rid of a judge, but it's best to do it in the very beginning, or if you do have some cause to do it, when the case begins, because that judge, is biased or prejudiced against you particularly.
But that you're going to need
Yeah,
some evidence
justification
of that
Right,
to actually prove that. Just
right.
the fact that the judge,
You don't like them.
yes, or that they appear
Hard
to be
asses.
expressing
Yeah.
more sympathy for one side or the other
Correct.
is not going to be a reason to get them removed.
Right. So that was one thing that makes us think and stuff today about our criminal justice system. But we have other things too, right, Carm?
We do, we do.
Well, you want to get to the big thing, or you want to talk a little bit about SAC here and the latest news of what's happening here in Sacramento?
You can go ahead and talk about Sacramento.
Well, as most people know, they filed criminal charges on 3 individuals, and they have charged them with 3 counts of murder. They have chosen the three, well, yeah, they've chosen the 3 women who are victims of the crime. Now, I just want to point out
Yeah.
that there were 6 victims of the crime. There were 6 people that we all mourned and we all said were victims. And now
Well, there
that
were
they
six
have,
people who
they were
who
killed.
died.
Yes.
Yes, who were killed as a
Right.
result of this.
And there's 12 others, of course, who are wounded. However, the prosecution's office chose to file 3 murder charges against the 2 Johnson brothers and another individual who they do not have yet. And their theory is, of course, this is gang related. And they have apparently decided that the 3 individuals who passed, who are not listed as victims, were either involved in some way to where they possibly were co-defendants and would be charged, or they're just not victims. So it brings up this point, and the prosecutor can do that. They can pick and choose that, and they charged more than multiple murders and things like that. But the issue becomes, what about these three individuals, and what did they do exactly? Because there is a theory that they can go by, which is provocative murder, in that if my team, group of people, we go in and we're doing something, we're all together on it, and the other parties or somebody else, cops even, shoot one of our team, we can be prosecuted for the death of that team member. They haven't done it on that theory yet because they do usually just charge an open count of murder. But that's something that may come up in the future. But it's kind of weird and interesting that the victims' families, the ones who are not seen as victims now of a crime, um, how are they going to feel that no one's charged with those murders? And then what about the 12 people who are injured? Shouldn't there be 12 more attempted murders? But that's going to be difficult when we talk about theory of liability, kill zone, things like that. So what do you think about that, Carm? That
Well, just
who
the
is victim, who are victims, and who are not?
Well, just the mere fact that they haven't filed charges at this point doesn't mean that they can't at some later point.
Right?
And so I don't think it precludes from referring to those individuals who lost their lives as being victims, just the mere fact that charges were not or have not yet been filed, because the district attorney can always move to amend the complaint to allege additional charges. And I think that they're just probably still in the process, considering um, all of the events that happened that night, and reviewing
The
all
video.
of the
Yeah.
evidence, the surveillance videos from the various businesses that may have captured events, as well as I understand there were. We live in a society of technology where everybody has a camera, handy right there in their hand or in their pocket, and so all of the videos from the various civilians that were uploaded as well.
And some of it was released by Fox. At least Fox News released some of the video where they could identify individuals. Now, what to me, what it comes down to is defining who did what to whom. Because, like I said, if we're a team and the two of us are carrying guns and we get into a dispute and you're with me as a team, so to speak, but I don't have the gun, I'm not shooting at anyone, but the people who shoot back kill me. Well, like I said, they would have to file a provocative murder charge on that issue. But right now, even before doing so, they have at least decided that they are not true victims or that they're not innocent parties, or else they would have filed those charges too. And simply because that person is with the people that they accuse.
I'm going to disagree that they would have filed again, because they can amend the complaint at
Yeah,
any point in time. So I think if they're still trying to figure out who did what,
right.
they've obviously determined, okay, we believe that these people are completely innocent
Innocent,
and true victims, and themselves not involved in firing any weapons.
right.
It could theoretically be, and I don't know, that rather than the other individuals being part of the group, that perhaps they were from an opposing group.
Yeah. I mean, well, from what I think I know,
And you may know
it's
more than I.
what I think it's part of each.
Mm,
I think there are some people. Well, because the young man, the light skinned young man with the two last names, he was clearly with the Martin brothers.
okay.
You see, and he's dead now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have assumed that the others are not with the Martin
Martin
brothers.
Brothers.
So, and here's one of the biggest problems. What do you think is going to be the defense, Carm? I mean, when something like that happens, what's the first thing that pops in your mind?
Well, anytime that you have to take a weapon and fire at somebody, potentially you could be acting in self defense,
Right.
especially if that person had fired at you first, or even if they
Threatened.
hadn't fired
Yes.
at you first, but had threatened you
Yes.
and you were fearful.
Right. So this is that's why figuring out who did what is going to be a real task, and I don't think video is going to solve it necessarily, but what might solve it would be eyewitnesses who did see what may have happened. So there are statements and there's stuff out there we don't know about yet, and they're still doing probably some ballistic studies and
We
things
have a
like that.
comment from Sheepdog Protector relating to the First Amendment, and that is why we need to allow racist people to speak online so we have proof that they are racist.
And the next,
Additionally,
yeah,
that not all Black people are gang members.
right,
What makes this a gang shooting?
right.
Lawman?
Well, because they saw a video a few hours earlier where the Martin brothers and others were talking gang speak, so to speak, mentioning who they are and who they might be warring with and what they're out there to do. Now, let's just be clear, and Carm knows this, being a gang member
Is not a crime.
is not a crime.
You are allowed to
Yeah,
be a member of any organization that you should choose.
yeah,
There's a right of association.
right.
That's why it's not a crime to be a member of the Proud Boys.
Or
It's
KKK
it's
or anything like that.
yeah. And so being a gang member is not a crime. Now, let's talk about how it's portrayed in the media. The majority of people don't realize that, and they believe that gang membership in and of itself is a crime, but that is not true.
And they also want to believe and will believe that anything you do must be criminal.
Or
And
that
that, or
it must be
yeah,
for the purpose of
of
the game.
exactly. If even if it's to yell at people and yell out the gang, to provocatively uh, inflame others because we're of rival gangs, so to speak. So it's that's why it's going to be interesting how they parse this out in the end. And then there's the issue of a capital murder, multiple murder allegation, and whether or not the DA would want the death penalty or not. Now they can choose to do so, but what do
I
you think on that, Carm?
well, I would just like to. I know that it has been spoken about nationally as and by the media here as well, as a mass shooting. When I think of a mass shooting, I think of someone who is randomly shooting individuals for no reason at all. They're not acting in any way in self defense.
Self-defense. Right.
They are just randomly deciding, hey, at this location, I'm going to try and kill as many people as I can. Like what we saw with the individual that
Vegas.
happened in Vegas, where he got the hotel room
Yeah.
and just fired out into the crowd
Brought a number of
versus
weapons, brought
yes,
ammunition. So
versus a situation where a dispute breaks out and then individuals exchange gunfire.
right. And
So it clearly
yeah.
is a shooting, but I would not describe this as a mass shooting. It is a shooting where a number of people were killed, but it's not a mass shooting in terms of what we typically think of it as a mass shooting. For example, what happened with Sandy Hook,
Right.
where you had the individual go in and just shoot up children.
Columbine, even back then.
Yes,
Right.
Columbine. No specific disagreement. I didn't have a fight with someone that
Right.
started me to shoot. I just planned, I'm going to go out and shoot as many people as I can.
Right.
And so that is what we typically think of as a mass shooting. This is an incident where, yes, there were multiple individuals who were killed, but this was not individuals who just decided that they were going to kill for the purpose of killing.
And the two things that differentiate is sure there are people who are running around with guns and weapons, and so but that does not elevate it to a death case just because of that.
And oh, go ahead.
Okay, and the second thing is has politics and it being termed a mass shooting in the political environment, does that pressure the DAs to be hard on this particular case? So we'll have to see about that secondary part. But go ahead, Carm. Yeah.
Yes, well, there is just right now a discussion in nationwide that crime is on the rise, and it's the result of these liberal policies. And so we need to get back to punishing people more harshly.
Right.
I haven't seen the statistics yet to actually prove that
Hmm.
crime is on the rise. I think there is more media attention to certain crimes that
Right.
occur and to crimes that are perpetrated by certain people.
Correct. And that's always going to be that way. I mean, people are dying every day, especially of guns in this country. And we can't put every one of them on the news. So we have to pick and choose, I guess, what the public will hear. So that's going to be an ongoing thing. We'll probably be checking in on that as it progresses. But as of this point, they're still looking for a third guy. They pushed it off to June, the court date, and it may go. It'll be probably 2 years before something substantial occurs in terms of a preliminary hearing or trial. So let's turn to the
One last
events.
thing,
Oh,
I would just like to say you are correct. We certainly, because of the large society that we live in, the media can't show every single crime that occurs, but it's interesting the ones that they choose to focus on.
all right.
Now, of national importance,
Yes. Let's see.
what's going on,
Let's
lawman?
see. The Supreme Court of the United States, who has said that separate but equals okay. They're down with slavery through the years.
Not
Now,
now,
oh
lawman,
no,
not
through the
now.
years, through the years. Okay, the same Supreme Court who then said no on the whole segregation issues. You see,
So you're
who have
pointing out that there have been times where they've had one view, and
yes,
then that
and then they
view
changed
over
it
time has
exactly
changed.
because that's what they can do. However, we know that they carry the moral flag of society, and that there is a theory, at least, it was a legal principle, stare decisis, which says you should follow the laws that are already in place. With that in mind, the Supreme Court has leaked a decision that they're going to overturn the popular, or at least iconic, decision of Roe v. Wade. And this isn't just another case that they're overturning because of society saying we want something to change, like ending segregation. Society was saying we want things to change, and the Supreme Court listened. Brown versus Board came about after a huge 9-year legal battle before the justices decided that separate but equal should be ended as a national philosophy. So here we've had Roe v. Wade for over 50 years, but we've also had state statutes on the book. And lots of states have been trying to write legislation and pass legislation in order to overturn Roe v. Wade. And here we have some leak, which let's not talk about a leak. I don't care about that. Let's talk about the fact that they have made a decision basically to overturn Roe v. Wade. So I look at it as, because I'm lawman, stare decisis. Wait a minute. What has changed to force the court to reverse its field on that? And is this just a political decision by the Supreme Court, who is supposed to be so non political that even at speeches for any new president, they do not clap, they can't stand, they can't show any emotion towards whatever president is there? That's how distant they're supposed to be. But what we've seen is, even through Clarence Brown, some influence from the right based on his wife's doings and who she's hanging around. So, Carmen, I'm gonna let you lead
Here we
the
go. We
discussion
have
on
someone
this.
else who is leading the discussion. Obama had a window to push an abortion amendment,
Mm-hmm.
but instead he put his trust in the hubris of an 85-year-old woman with cancer, and her hubris of wanting to serve under President Hillary. Ninth Amendment Roe v. Wade was a fundamentally flawed decision, inventing rights not reserved to the facts.
Wow.
You could say that about a number of things that
That's
the
right.
Supreme Court has done.
But here's the thing
let's
with the Obama.
go
Let's
ahead.
talk about the law first.
Yes, go ahead.
Look, Obama favored federal law that would have codified Roe v. Wade. He didn't have the votes in Congress to do
No,
it.
he
That's
did not.
why.
He-
Okay, people filibustered. People did everything they could to stop him. But that has been what 70% of America it would be favorable to such legislation. So it wasn't Obama doing it. And I guess he's referring to Ruth Ginsburg,
I believe
right?
he is talking
Okay.
talking about Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg.
But like we were saying, politics is out of this. Ginsburg couldn't have done one thing one way or the other.
Well, I think what the commenters, what they're attempting to say is that Ginsburg could have been. Now she couldn't have
She could
been
have left.
replaced, but
Right.
she on her. So he can't. The president can't just remove a Supreme
Right.
Court justice.
That's right. They serve
But
for life.
she could have retired, but she opted not to. And so that
Several
was
didn't retire.
Yes.
Most don't retire. They
Yes.
die on the bench.
that is true.
Breyer has probably gotten tired and said, I'm out of here. But most don't retire. Retire.
Sheepdog Protector says Joe Biden could stop this right now, right? Not on his own.
Right.
No, he cannot.
He has to get the legislation passed.
He does. And if the legislation is not passed, if it's not passed federally, what is going to happen is it's going to be up to each individual state. And what you're going to see in a lot of southern states, which is what we've already seen, because they are the ones that are
Already
pushing
written the legislation.
these
Yes.
laws to limit a woman's right to choose. Now, what is funny to me is that the majority of people who are opposed to abortion, which is a medical procedure that should be between a woman and her doctor, are the same people who support the death penalty. So I say to them, which is it? Is life important or is it not?
Right.
We have a comment from CC Badger. Abortion should be a woman's right to choose what she wants to do with her body. No if, and, or buts.
And that's true. And that's why Roe v. Wade stood for so many
long.
years, is because that became the moral thread of our society. You know, you mentioned about what were you just talking about? I can't remember now. But
Moran Tactical wants to, a fun fact. Now, Moran Tactical, are you female or male? Because if you're male, get your hands off my body.
Look, and most people, I mean, here's the thing. Are we going to battle over this issue or not?
And who is this going to impact?
Right.
It's going to impact poor women, because women with means will just travel to California and still have their procedure done.
Or they'll give it up.
Girls from families with means will just be shipped to California or whatever other state where they can have their procedure done. So it's going to affect poor women, women who maybe not be able to afford another child. Now, these same people who are in support of forcing that woman to go through a 9-month pregnancy and then care for that child, are they going to provide her any extra funding to help her take care of that child? No, they are not. Those are the same people who want to cut any funding that would help someone who is poor.
That's true. And along that lines, I mean, think about it. There's also a religious factor here, whereby some people, if in fact they can't have the abortion, their religion is going to force them to keep this child. You know, I mean, and now, I mean, it's just what it breaks down to me is this. Look, we say it is not a right, or at least there's naysayers who say it's not a right that you had from the Constitution. But there are several things that haven't arisen from the Constitution, but from the right to privacy, the right to make decisions on of your life, pursuit of happiness, and things like that. So,
and those things are in the Constitution,
right? And
so they are subject to analysis and to interpretation. And so the Supreme Court was not wrong in the decision that they reached in Roe v. Wade. Right. We do have a comment from Moran Tactical. What is a female? That's not the discussion that we are having today. Are you a biologist? Again, not the discussion that we are having today.
At least for Roe v. Wade, it's a person who reproduces that will be affected. Okay. So, and the problem becomes who gets to make this decision now? Does the state get to make this decision versus individuals?
That is what will happen. Well,
Yeah,
each individual state will decide, basically, kind of like how
that's
when
right.
states had decided if they were slave
Marriage,
states
yes
or
or
free
not.
states.
That's right.
So states will decide if they are states that provide, allow abortion rights, or if they do not. We have a good comment from Sheepdog Protector. Can we take some of that 3 trillion?
Hmm.
I'm not sure if it's 3 trillion. I think it might have
Oh,
been so many
billions.
billion, but it's a large number that is going to Ukraine
Mm,
to support women that are forced to keep their babies. They're not going to do
no,
that. They're just like, oh, you had another baby. I understand that you're poor and you work minimum wage and you didn't have enough money to take care of yourself. And
right,
now we're forcing you to also take care of that baby.
right. I mean,
And we have CC Badger letting Moran Tactical know that he is ignorant people. And I would have to agree at times with that assessment. Sometimes the comments of Moran Tactical are right on point and they are smart and intelligent, but here he's going off on a tangent. Now he's talking about
he's trying to.
murders per year, 350 murders per year committed with rifles, including AR-15s. Late term abortion is 15 times more deadly. Um, I'm not
I
aware of
know.
the
Wait a minute. What's
abortion
being it?
involving individuals who are living outside of the woman's body.
And deciding to kill. I mean, and that's against the law, remember? So we can't just
This is a medical procedure,
right.
a medical procedure.
Also an individual privacy right decision. See, we can't forget the privacy right issue that's here.
Yes.
I mean, once you have granted someone a right, you really can't take it away without due process of law. I mean, so you have, and I'll give you a perfect example. You have a privilege to drive, but when they give you that privilege, they can't take it without due process.
Yes.
So here now, this privilege or this right that you have to control your own body and make a privacy decision has now been ripped away.
Yes, we have CC Badger commenting. I do agree that an abortion should happen early on. However, it is still a woman's body. And the problem may be also that this may force
Oh,
women who are victims of rape
rape.
to now
Right.
have the rapist baby, because
That's
guess
right.
what? You don't get to have an abortion. You don't get to make that medical
That's right.
decision with your doctor. It may force women who are victims, and
Incest.
women and children who are victims of incest to now have those babies.
Right. Because it's not precluded by the statutes that are written. And if you go to just go to Wisconsin and Michigan,
Oh, Moran Tactical is so concerned with these late term abortions. I guess he has the funds where he is going to take care of all of these children. So maybe the women that are forced to have these children should drop them off at Moran Tactical's doorstep.
remember in Michigan and Wisconsin,
Oh, there we go. CC Badger says every child that is not aborted to be given to Moran with
they
an
are
AR-15 to protect those babies. There you go, Moran. You're going to have a household full of babies, a household full of
and
babies
plenty
from
of guns.
rapists and from people who have committed incest.
Remember in Wisconsin and Michigan, what is happening is if they revert back to their state law, that law was written during Civil War times and things like that. And so it is going to be chaos every state in determining what kind of law that's actually going to pass now. And if there's a law already in place, it has to be repealed first. So this battle has just begun. I believe that what you're going to see is a grassroots effort and movement to disobey this law. Guess what? In the civil rights movement, guess what? What did people have to do when the law said you can't be together, integrate, and things like that? They did it anyway. They broke the law, and civil disobedience is sometimes good when the law is illegal.
Yes.
So that's what you're going to see. It was wrong for white and black to marry. It was wrong for whites to go or blacks to go into a white establishment.
Yes.
and they had to do it and force it
And
and risk getting killed, beat through for years in order to change that law. This wasn't just white America woke up and said,
we sorry, we were
right,
wrong all this
we
time.
good, right?
No, people
No,
had to fight.
for years for that to happen.
Yes.
And if you remember, Martin Luther King used to always quote that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do the quote.
Well, but he would stress that, look, an immoral law is a bad law, and you've got to stand up against it. You don't have to be violent against it, but nonviolent protest is the way to change it. If people have to start filling up jails and doing things like that, civil disobedience will change the laws.
Yes. So Moran Tactical had mentioned that the rape victim has 16 weeks. Oh, well, that's great for a 16-year-old girl who the rapist is her father, is her uncle, is her brother, who controls every aspect of her life.
But what time has to do with it when you can't get the abortion anyway? I mean,
Well, he was saying for the Mississippi law, because at this point right now, the Mississippi law allows you can have the abortion as long as you have it within 16 weeks.
Okay.
Which a lot of times, sometimes women don't even realize that they're pregnant during that time period. Right. But again, that is still coming from Lawman, who knows apparently nothing about how babies.
Hold on, you say coming from Lawman.
I'm sorry, coming from Moran Tactical, who knows nothing about how babies get into this world. And Moran Tactical says Lawman is now pretending that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments don't exist. They exist, but people didn't abide by them.
That's right.
CC Badger, no one can tell a rape victim when she needs to abort a baby.
That's right. Just back to the 13th Amendment, if we remember right, people incarcerated are enslaved. So,
That
13th Amendment, that didn't overturn.
13th Amendment actually allows that.
That's right.
Sheepdog Protector says, I do not see any Democrats fighting for us. We have Shaka Asafa, pro-choice outweighs the destruction of self-induced or underworld abortions and the carrying of unwanted seeds.
Right. And we've said this before. That's the thing, is that this has been the argument in Roe v. Wade as the why we have it. So what?
But again, it is men litigating as to a woman's body. And I know that Moran Tactical is going to say, oh, wait, because we have this female justice on there that President Trump put on. Well, all right. That's what we have. But once again, we've come to the end of another show with Lawman and Carmen B.
And I'll tell you something. This is not going to end. Okay. This is just the beginning. And it is a serious legal issue here, whereby it could and here's the real harm. Has the Supreme Court overstepped their boundaries here? That's going to be the thing. And if they just
decided to change this law, what else will they decide to change?
That's right.
And that is why you need to be aware, you need to be informed, you need to be educated. And we would remind you again that elections are coming up for Sacramento Sheriff, for DA,
City Council, county supervisors, boards, for school districts.
So do not ignore that mail that is coming in, and then do your research on those candidates.
That's right.
Don't just look at a name and a face and think that person is someone who they may not be. Do your research on what their policies are and how those policies will impact you.
And don't forget to vote.
Yes.
Register and vote.
Yes.
Felons can do it.
Yes. You just cannot be
in prison
or on
active parole.
Yes. And that's in California. In your own state, you need to check what the laws are in that state regarding voting.
Right.
We again appreciate you spending your time here with us. We are here every Friday. We try to be here every Friday.
Yeah, we do.
Sometimes we have a little hiccup. So
people get sick.
Yes, that happens. We will see you here next Friday at 6 p.m. courtside with Lawman
and Carmen B.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Please.